Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Hi, everyone. How you going? Welcome to the podcast. It's a new year. You've probably been tuning in the last week or so. We've had some great episodes running on air. With my absence, I've actually been over in the States. Got back a couple of days ago doing some stuff over there and keeping an interest in the US property market. I know there's a lot of work. A lot of people these days are looking to invest in the US. There's still plenty of cheap properties out there off the backs of the global financial crisis, and there are some buyers agents quite active out there. And if you go back and tune in, I think we ran a couple of podcasts on this back in it would have been October and November of 2018 about the opportunities to look at the US market. Myself, I'm not investing out there. I was out there for other stuff, but I always have a look at property, and no matter where I am, and it's a pretty vibrant market. I think despite the concerns of an economy a government which isn't working right now, they're in a bit of a hiatus. They can't work out what they're going to do. They're trying to build a wall or something or other, and that stopped everything happening. Whether that trickled down into property markets and the stock markets, check it out on the news. There's quite a lot of information around it. But today we're going to have a bit of an easier chat rather than heavy economic principles or the upsides or downsides of the Australian property market. I've got a couple of people in the studio who seem to be living the life that a lot of people aspire to. Sharon and Tony MacNevin. They're retired Australians who are living in Bali, who seem to have set themselves up a nice life by investing pretty sensibly in property. Tony, Sharon, how are you going? Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thanks for having us, Phil.
How are you?
Good. So you guys are backwards and forwards from Bali. Is that your life now? Is that pretty much how it all works?
Yeah, we are. And on average, we're back here for anything usually 4 months, 4 or 5, maybe 6 months too. It just depends. We pop back and forth quite frequently. And we still have real estate here. That's where we keep our real estate. We don't want to buy overseas. You know, my husband's always drilled it into me. When you know what you've got, make sure that's where you keep your money.
So, tough question. Where's home for you?
Well, as I told you, I was born in the States, but Sydney, Australia is my home.
Sydney's Australia home, and you just happen to live in Bali for a number of months per year. And, well, what happens up in Bali? What do you do up there? Just relax, take it easy? You must have some hobbies or interests.
Yeah, well, I'm a writer, so I write.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about to publish a book right now.
Oh, what sort of stuff do you write?
This is a cookbook.
Okay.
So it's been 3.5 years in the making, and it's a nice book.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What sort of food? Just stuff that you like eating? Or?
I guess. Indonesian.
The fusion English, is it Indonesian, Australian, or is it just...
No, it's very straight Indonesian cooking. It's beautiful. Lots of spices and... lots of different sauces. It's fantastic food to eat. And I've been going to all of the islands over the last 6 years with Tony. We do a lot of traveling. Yeah. And I've always been a cook. Yeah, I collect recipes. And I have a very good friend who has a home not far from us. She's Indonesian. And we've cooked all the recipes. She's a very, very good cook. And we've put the book together. Do
you know if a Westerner's cooked Indonesian food? Like, can you actually tell? If you put like a plate of your stuff against someone else's, would you go, oh yeah, this actually is pretty authentic?
If it's my food, you wouldn't know. Yeah. You wouldn't know. But, I went around Indonesia doing a face-off with beef rendang. Okay. Daring Indonesians to make one as good as I could. And it took me until I got to northern Sumatra until I found somebody that could cook a good one. And then I just went, oh, yes, thank you.
There you go. So I guess this is the benefits of creating a life where you get to do the things you love doing, and it seems you've achieved that through property. What's the backstory, Tony? How did you guys end up in Indonesia? What did you do here, right here in Australia?
Well, I was a field geologist for many years, but and I loved it, actually. When that last job, well, it's a bit of a long story, but basically the toxicity in the office went up. The boss, who I was good friends with, got Parkinson's disease. Before that, I could say, hey, Paul, blah, 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 get an answer, and that was it. And then when he got Parkinson's disease, the whole thing sort of went down the tube, and my project got put on hold. Sharon's business was, she was sick of it, really, after about 10 years. And I just went to, here's a plug, jetstar.com.
Yeah. And here's the best part. I looked at him one day. We were going for a walk on the beach. Do you remember? And I said, I think I got 10 good years left in you. I'm going to use them up.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that.
I'll leave that to people's imagination. But,
Yeah. But I actually bought the real estate. I bought a property, a house for as a family house to start with, and before that, I'd looked at a block of 3 flats in Queenscliff, and a friend of mine who worked for AMP Property said, "You can't afford it, don't do it," and I got advised out of it. It went to auction, and I could have actually afforded it. And so that put me on the road of actually not listening so much to experts, and to, like of that type, like working for AMP Property is not really going to be the person to tell you what to do as your own personal investment, I don't think. So then I looked around and I found a block of 6 in Manly.
Okay.
And I bought that. That was in 73 or 4.
Okay. 73, 74.
Yeah.
What was the block of how many?
Block of 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Hence the reason why you're now living in Bali. You've done pretty well out of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I also, I don't know if this opportunity is still available, but I strata titled it. It was on one title, and I broke it up into 6, strata titled it.
Whereabouts in Manly was it?
It was in Redall Street, just behind the surf club. A fantastic position, guys.
Absolutely. Okay. I think I know the block.
Yeah.
So you bought that in 73, 74.
Yeah.
What did you pay for the whole block back then?
90-something thousand.
90-something thousand.
Doesn't that make you cry?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
For six, 2 bedders?
Yes, 2 bedders.
Oh,
yeah.
no, the last one, the penthouse, had 3 bedrooms
yeah.
downstairs and 1 bedroom upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah. The one we hang on to till the end when we cashed it in for our super was on 2 levels, sort of a penthouse apartment with ocean views, blah blah blah. It was not hard to sell.
I bet you it wasn't. So you bought this block in 73, 74. When did you liquidate the whole block?
We only sold the last one, well, bit by bit, to get out of debt to start with. I think it was probably a mistake in retrospect getting out of debt. I think I should have just carried that debt and gone on with it, because the real money in real estate is made from capital gain, not from rentals.
Yeah.
And if you can support the debt, if you can service the debt, then I think stick with it. And I probably would have a lot more. I'd have a lot more money if I'd stuck with it and not been so scared of being in debt.
And this is the challenge a lot of property investors have, right? How do you balance your debt appetite with your ambitions and your goals? So you took debt to buy the property at $90,000.
Yeah.
Did you keep sort of refinancing against it over the years, or did you keep your debt level quite
No,
stable?
I was too conservative. I sold 2 fairly quickly. I renovated. I got the strata title through first, then I renovated the 2 least attractive units, and I sold them, and that got me into a really incredibly good position, I'd have to say. The plan got shot by a divorce, which I hadn't planned on getting a divorce, and that ended up in a 50-50 settlement.
Okay.
So one of the units went, well, really 2 of the units went on the divorce settlement. So, yeah.
And this is the way it works out sometimes.
Yeah,
and,
you can't plan on that.
You can't plan it, but it's been good nonetheless. So
it's been incredible.
Yeah.
I've made much more money out of property than out of being a geologist.
And this is what a lot of people say: you make your money in business, parking property, right? And then hopefully you can. Yeah. When did this aspiration happen to live this double life of 6 months in Indonesia and 6 months in Australia? Was that always a goal for you?
Well, we started doing similar things before the kids were born too. So because Tony did so much contract work, and my work was being a writer, it's quite flexible too. Sometimes it was advantageous to rent everything and go overseas. So we were living in Mexico on and off for 4 years before we had. Well, no, Georgia was a little baby. So we took advantage of the real estate and rented it out to make incomes out of it, and that worked really well for us, didn't it?
It sure did.
And so when you bought this block originally, 73, 74, you sold off some. Did you reinvest that money at all? You said you paid off some debt, and obviously there was a settlement there. But did you invest in some other properties over the course of 40 years?
No, unfortunately, no. It would have been fantastic if I had. I sort of wanted to spend some of it, really, and we were pretty cashed up, and the rent here was paying for our trips overseas, and we lived in Mexico for quite a long while. And, I mean, there are Westerners who go to Indonesia and they try and make money in Indonesia, and I think make your money in Australia or America or wherever and spend it in Indonesia. You know what I mean? So
goes a lot further.
Yeah. I'm getting back to another point. I think this is good advice. And you were talking about buying in the United States, and I'm sure there are great opportunities, and if you're set up for it, that would be probably a really lucrative thing to do. But my rule has always been buy the property, the rental property that you're going to actually invest in and get that income from. Buy it somewhere where you can get to it. Like Perth is not as good as, I'm in Sydney, we're in Sydney. Buying in Perth is probably not as good as buying in Balgowlah, for example.
Yeah, and that's I guess a doctrine that some people live by as well. And there's a lot of talk these days about you should be agnostic where you invest. You should invest in places where the numbers make the most sense, but you've got to have a certain comfort level as well. So, how would you describe your journey in property? Would you say it's been a successful one, or you?
It's been totally successful. It's been. I mean, Sydney has been incredible. It really has. And this is the other thing that I use interest-only loans, and so you never pay off the principal, right? But the way Sydney's been for the last 40 years, the money, it doesn't matter. If I bought that property for, say, $90,000, so it was just to keep it simple, it's one property, I bought it for $90,000. Well, you wouldn't. You would put my house, I bought it for $23,000, a little bit before that. Now, I had $5,000, I borrowed $18,000. If I'd struggled to pay off that $18,000, imagine today, I've paid off the $18,000. That house is now worth $4 million. The $18,000 is peanuts. It's not worth paying off the principal if you're getting capital gain.
Yeah, and this is the whole grail for everyone. It's about trying to hold your properties for as little as possible, making sure that you invest in the properties that get the best capital growth.
Yeah,
and I think this is a great example of property as a game of time as much as the asset. You bought these properties in Manly back in 74. It's 44 years ago. You've seen a couple of market cycles there. Was there any point in time where you got really worried? Like right now, we're in a bit of a softening city market. Yeah. But how many cycles have you seen? Probably quite
a few.
4, 5, 6 different cycles through there.
Yeah, I always remember the 68 one. I think it was 68.
No, not 68, 86 or something.
Oh yeah. I think it was. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
80 in 86, I had a property in Cremorne, a real sort of a unit on the top floor of a block that was built probably in the 60s or something. And I wanted to put it on the market, but there was a complication.
That was your parents' firm property?
That was my dad's property. And there was, anyway, that whole awful thing that happened with the no will and everything, that delayed me for a year. There was a real estate stock market crash in, I think it was 86. Like it was really quite a bad one. And everyone was scared. But the next year, every property in Sydney went up something like 100%. So me being tied up in this legal problem and coming onto the market 1 year later, I was actually got double what I'd expected 1 year earlier.
Wasn't that also the time when interest rates went up to 18%?
No, that was
that?
That would have been the early 90s. I imagine.
Oh, it was scary.
Yeah, early mid 90s is when interest rates went up to 18%, and it's all about trying to hold your property and not being. A lot of people at the moment, considering the Sydney Melbourne markets, get swept up in the noise of drops of 8 or 9% or whatever Sydney dropped in 2018, and they sit there and think, I've got to sell. But it's the secret is being able to hold on your property irrespective of it, because markets move in cycles.
And I think what Tony said makes a lot of sense in that regards too. If you are paying interest only money, and you're not just putting every cent you can get into there, because when the interest rates go up that high, you need some of that money. You really need to keep it. And that interest only means that you might not be as heavily indebted as you did it.
Well, you've got greater capacity to hold on the property without too much financial stress. But I think also the point here is that you invest in areas which are going to have growth. And whether or not you were an absolute genius back in 74 thinking that Manly would be a good place to invest. What was Manly like back in 74? Was it was a really attractive place to live?
It was never going to be a problem in the real estate Manly, and it still isn't. And also coming off 8%, I think Buffett said about the equity markets, it's time in the market.
Yeah.
And coming off 8% after whatever the rise has been, I'm not really up on it, but there's been quite a rise in Sydney real estate, and coming off 8% is really, if that shouldn't panic you.
This block that you bought in Manly back in 74, what would it be worth today, do you think, if you still had your hands on it?
It'd be worth...
We sold the last unit for $2.4 million.
Okay. Was that the top floor?
Unit.
Was that the house? Yeah. When did you sell that?
2.5 years ago?
A bit over 2 years
ago.
Okay. So the block would be worth, 11, 12 million or something like that.
Imagine if you held onto it.
Yeah,
Imagine
yeah,
your kids would be happy about it, right?
yeah. I really blew it, didn't I?
But I guess it's utility, right? It's allowed you to. When you bought the block back in '74, did you sit there thinking, "Oh, one day this is going to be my retirement"?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So how old were you? Not that date your age, but how old would you be?
I was
27?
27,
Okay.
something like that.
So
the thing was, I'd worked for the government as a government geologist for 5 or 6 years, depending how you measure it, and it was also my timing there was fantastic. It was a mining boom and blah blah blah, and my wage just went up really well. But I'm just not a disciplined person to be a public servant. And so when I left that, I also not born with a silver spoon in my mouth. So when I left that, I thought I'd never work as a geologist ever again. I mean, that didn't happen. But I thought, well, so how am I going to eat? How am I going to make my money? How am I going to make money? And it just seemed like this block of 6 was the answer.
Yeah. It's pretty, and you were quite young at the time buying it. Were you... that's a pretty ambitious purchase. Your first purchase.
It was scary. No one was doing it, and borrowing the $75,000 or $80,000 was a lot of money. That was, I don't know what the equivalent would be now, but it was a lot of money.
Yeah,
it was scary to owe that much money.
And did you manage it? Did you live in one at all yourself? Or
Never.
Did you rent them all out? No,
never.
And how did you manage them all? Did you manage them yourself?
Yes,
or
I did.
In to do it?
No, I did it all myself.
Did you ever knock on doors and say, "Pay me the cash"?
I did.
It's obviously before.
No, I did. I did. Yeah.
Did you always get paid?
Pretty much, yeah. I was pretty lucky with tenants. Very lucky. I mean, I had submariners in one time, and they painted the ceiling 1 bedroom black and had black lights, and they were wild guys.
Yeah,
slaves beneath the waves. But they paid their rent all the time, and in the end, I painted the black ceiling white again when they'd moved out.
Easy to do.
And we were never greedy about rent. I think you can try to go for top dollar, and you'll end up with people who are incredibly picky, and they might not pay the rent that you want them to pay too. So I would say to people, be realistic when you're renting out a place to other people, because you might get better people if you just drop that value a little bit. They'll stay with you longer. Most of our tenants stayed for years and years.
And they end up on a good deal, but you don't have to worry about it. The money comes in. If you put the rent up and they leave, and it's downtime for a month, it takes you like 18 months, even if you put the rent up 10% to claw it back.
Yeah.
So I always had that attitude. And also, if we're going away for 6 months overseas, I want them to stay and pay the rent. And I sometimes I got an agent, sometimes I got a friend to collect the rent. Yeah,
worked well. Did you do many renovations on it? You just
endless,
renovating,
endless. Yeah.
Well,
that's all a tax deduction. Of course.
It is, of course. Yeah. Any major headaches that you had? Anything in particular which
we had a few strata problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you would have lost control of strata at some point.
Yeah, that was a really bad thing, and I kind of misjudged that. Yeah, because I was sole proprietor. At first, and then you have to go through a process, and the law says blah blah blah, and I wasn't too up on the process, and I kind of wish I'd done things before I ceased to be the sole proprietor.
Okay. And do you have a good accountant that sort of advised you through all this, or you just?
No, I had a lawyer who's sort of a friend, and he helped out a lot. And in fact, he was so enthusiastic about it, he offered me spotters fees if I could find other properties.
Okay.
And then I was on the choice of, well, hang on, why would I take a spotter's fee to find a gold mine for someone else, or will I do it myself?
It's funny how you call it a spotter's fee. Now they're called buyer's agents, right? Go and find me. I very much doubt there's any properties left in Manly or anywhere in Northern Beaches which is six units all in under one title. That hasn't been strata yet.
I'm sure.
Diamond in the rough these days, but they don't really exist. That's really interesting. When did you guys decide to move up to Bali? Was that always a goal, or was it one of those spur of the moment things? And you said on the beach, let's get as much out of me as possible. Was that it's been a good experience? It's
been a good experience. I always thought we'd retire and go back to Mexico, because I have unfinished work that I'd like to do in Mexico. But Mexico's gotten quite dangerous. And it'd be quite a ways away from the kids, and Indonesia's very close, so we can get here in 5.5 hours. And I had a book I was writing that was set in Sulawesi at the time, and I thought, I'd like to go back to Sulawesi. Let's go live up in the mountains in Tanah Toraja. And that's what we were going to do, and then we figured out that's really hard. Let's just try to buy furniture up there. It's not easy. So Bali was an easy choice. And we went there initially just to spend a year so I could finish this book. And the property we've got so beautiful, we've just gone, no, we'll stay on. And, we've just stayed on.
So do you rent in Bali or do you
Oh, yeah.
you
Oh,
rent
no,
in
we
Bali?
would never buy.
You'd never buy in Bali?
You're
Why
not
is that?
allowed. It's
Yeah.
against the law. And people will go, oh, but we have freehold titles and blah, blah. And I look at them and say, well, check the law. The government has actually said that is an illegal purchase. Do something about it. And if they have, it's up to them. You can rent for, or you can take a contract for 25 years.
33, actually.
33 years. But that's it. You're never going to buy in Indonesia.
But if you lease the land from an Indonesian citizen, you can get 33 years plus a 33-year option. The 33-year lease is pretty solid. The option is, I wouldn't count on that. But then if you're my age, you don't want to do that. But if you're somewhere, say, in your early 40s or 30s or something, and you wanted to do that, you'd lease the land, build yourself a property in the knowledge that in 33 years, it's probably going to all go away, But that's okay.
That's okay. That's the if that's the decision you want to make. Does your money go quite far in Bali? Bali property is renting. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You got many sort of Australians living near you, or you sort of escape the?
No, we like it pretty quiet. Yeah. So there's 5 white properties in the area that we live in. We live on the beach, looking out at Lombok. It's beautiful. Really, we've got an acre of land. It's a nice place, but we don't have a lot of restaurants. We have a lot of Indonesians, a lot of Balinese.
That's good.
And it's good. We both speak the language, so we can play. I teach kids English. It
works. You still got property here in Australia?
Yeah, we've got a house. Yeah.
Is that where you live when you're back here, or do you rent that out?
We sort of live in a granny flat.
Okay.
When we get back here.
Yeah.
We used to couch surf with friends, and thank you very much and all the rest of it. But we got over that, you know. And so we wanted to have a little nook for ourselves, So we've got a granny flat.
Okay, and then you rent out the house. Whereabouts is this property?
That's in Manly also.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're very much Manly. It's a cool part.
Yeah.
Of it.
Yeah.
I get down there.
We like Manly.
Manly's great. Manly's very good. And what do you think about property now, Manly? Do you sort of walk around just going, this place has changed so much?
It has changed, I think, in a lot of ways for the better. Though.
Well, I look at our hill, and because I take the dog down to the park and walk the dog every morning. I'm looking up where our house is, and every property has changed. They've really changed. We got big, huge houses.
Yeah.
And so from that point of view, it's changed, but it's still got a community, a village sort of atmosphere too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it hasn't lost it, Manly. I think it's a good vibe. It's a good place. Are your kids down that way as well?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It'll always be good, that area, And not only that, the whole of the northern beaches, I think, and also I think the areas that are close on the north side of the harbour that are close in. I mean, you're paying big dollars, but
yeah. Well, they reckon now is the right time to be buying these sort of properties because they've come off a little bit and there's a lot less competition in the market. So
I really am not qualified to comment on that one.
That's good. So it's been a good journey. It's good to hear. So a lot of people to my original remark, a lot of people be sitting there thinking about, what am I going to do when I get to retire? And I think this is an example that if you buy well and hold on the property for a long period of time, you probably can sort yourself out. And it might be a big number now if you're investing in property. The average price in Sydney now is $1 million. I think it's a median thing. But fast forward 40 years, I think your property's probably going to be doing pretty well.
Yeah, $1 million will be small change.
It'll be chicken feed.
It'll be chicken feed. It will.
It's funny to think it, isn't it? It's, and hopefully properties in Bali aren't that expensive then, so everyone can go up there and make it a quite
they won't. There's so many other places in the world you can live and explore if you're that sort of person. A lot of people don't like to travel and they'd be happy just living here or maybe selling up and get something smaller when they get older. Maybe moving to the country. That's a good option too.
It is a good option.
Australia is a beautiful country and there's so many beautiful places that you can live in.
It is. I'm a big advocate of Australia. It's I don't know where I'm going to end up retiring, but I'm sure it'll be somewhere quite nice, hopefully. But Sharon, Tony, I really enjoyed the chat. It's good. It's good to know that it works. And I think a lot of people listening to this will be thinking, hang on a second, irrespective of the challenges and the trials and tribulations of investing in property, if you stay the course, you generally get there eventually. So thank you. Best of luck with it all. I hope you enjoy yourself up in Bali.
If we get to Bali, come and see us.
I'll do that. I've never been to Bali. I've been to Indonesia, but I've never been to Bali. I've always been a bit sort of, I think it's just this perception of Kuta is,
keep away from that area.
Keep away from Kuta.
If you want to party, if you want to be a party person, then go to Kuta.
And the waves are too crowded these days. It's hard to find a
That's for sure.
A good break without a million tourists on it. But anyway, no, thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Great,
Phil.
thank you.
If that sounds like a good story, if you're in a similar situation, we obviously try and share investor stories right across the spectrum here, from people investing and buying their first property through to people who are reaping the benefits and rewards of property investment. Get in touch with the team, editor at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, and we'll get you on the show. We'll have a chat. Stay tuned. There's heaps of stuff coming down the line, January, February of this year. Remember to check out smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. And if you like what we're doing, please keep those, just press that subscribe button wherever you're listening to this right now, and leave a review as well. The team do appreciate it. We'll be back again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs, and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property, or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.